Well, one of the most important scenes in Final Fantasy VII is when Aerith dies. But I think that one of the most important plot points for the game, because the story was about life and death. But I thought that, when they were using the remake, they were kind of changing the ideas. But if there was possible in a way that they could make the game the remake, where Aerith could die still or survive, that would make the experience a lot more better. I think for a game that has that much impact emotionally, and when it's trying to tell you about the cycle of life and death. That's why I think Final Fantasy VII is important, because there's that theme of life and death in the game. But usually games that have such more impact would relate to something that somebody could learn from in real life, or something more impacting. So I think that when you look at this scene in the Ville game, it is one of the most strongest scenes in the Ville game to me. Well, some people will say maybe that Metal Gear Solid 2 ending. Well, that was pretty good too. Or maybe other thing. But to me, this is also a very powerful part. Just like when you go to Cosmo Canyon. I remember thinking when I first saw this part of the game that there was a way to bring the character back, but it was only through a glitch it could. You'd have to use a translation to see what is being said at those parts, but I believe the Japanese dialogue is very detailed, very good made as well. Sometimes translation would mix stuff up, get a little jarbled. I think what we learned from this scene is that Sephiroth was manipulating Cloud's mind because he had the Genova cells in him, so there was like to me there was almost like two Clouds. There was like the clone Cloud, which being manipulated just like the guys in the black capes, and then there was the original Cloud. It was kind of like being covered up and masked by the clone version of Cloud. There's like two characters, and it's kind of like the clone Cloud is like the bad. It's weird. It's like controlled, being manipulated by Sephiroth, taking part in what the story was called the reunion. That's why I think that the remake is gotta be careful not to fall apart, because I think that if you don't have the original Final Fantasy VII story, it's gonna be very confusing. I mean, you'll have like an alternate reality, but sometimes it doesn't always need to be a happy ending in the game. Sometimes the story meaning is more powerful with the way it is, but I mean, I believe in happiness. But I like it that there's this sort of emotional turmoil in Final Fantasy VII, like this dark theme to it. I think maybe that's what makes games more powerful. Usually the dark theme games were more powerful than the lighter theme games. That's why I like Final Fantasy more than games like Kingdom Hearts or when they do the Sunshine and Rainbows. I mean, we can't be afraid to show the depth of storytelling and the ideas of it. I think that this is a very powerful scene, and if it is not possible in the remake, it will not be as much as a powerful game. And I think that death is a very powerful theme in Final Fantasy VII. Even from you heard about other videos and things talking about it. I remember being emotional, but I noticed that death doesn't make me cry as much anymore. But at first I was emotional. I guess maybe when you're young, faced with those things is though. But I like emotion in saga and games. It makes for good games. I like how Final Fantasy makes things seem that way. It's like saga. It's like, oh, this can't be, no. It's like the emotion. I think this part was really beautiful though in the game. There's just something powerful about it. But the game does give you an easy victory, just in case somebody was upset about the sadness if you equipped a water ring. But it is one of my favorite Phil game scenes. Sometimes I would stop playing after this part. I don't know why. It would feel like the game was over to me for a little bit. Then you would come back. Then when you realize your dedication to play the game, you keep playing. But this is a very wonderful scene in the game. Khan was talking about how the meaning of that character's life wasn't going to go on anymore. It's like being recycled into nature. Good emotion. But what was interesting about the game is that earlier, when you seen the cycle of life in the Cosmo Canyon, that kind of connects to this. So the game kind of like brings it into another powerful perspective with one of the main characters of the party dying while talking about death, because you were seeing characters die throughout the game. I find that interesting too. And it's kind of like reinforces the message the game was talking about in the cycle of life. Even when the end of the game it says 500 years later. But I think Final Fantasy VII does a real good job of giving its theme throughout the game as you connect it.